everyone, my name is Jivika. I'm a GP ST2, meaning that I'm in second year of GP training, and I'm just doing a short video on the AKT, which is the Applied Knowledge Test. So that's an exam that you need to pass in order to become a GP in the UK. So it's one of the green ticks you need in order to complete your GP training. And the rationale behind doing this video is that I took the exam last month. It was my first attempt. I passed it in the first go and I had a really good score of 83%, which is above merit score, and I thought I did reasonably well, and I decided to make this video so that if someone's struggling with the exam, if someone's wanting some tips, or they just want to know about the exam, they can have a look at this video and it might help them. So a bit of a background here really. So quite early on in my training, so when I was still in ST1, I decided that I was going to I think I'm the kind of person who likes to do things early, get them done and get them out of the way. So I wanted to take the exam as soon as I would have been eligible to take the exam. So this was the first point in my training where I was eligible to take the exam, and I took it. So yeah, you can take the exam ST2 onwards. If you're in ST1, you are not eligible to take the exam, similar to how CSA or RCA works, where you're not eligible until you're in the third year of training. I'm just going to tell a bit of a story, only because sometimes people say things like, oh, you know what, I don't have enough time, I've got kids to look after, and I appreciate that it must be so difficult to do a training job and then take an exam when you have kids. I can't imagine what that's like, but I thought maybe I'll share a little bit of my story and maybe people might be inspired by it. So early in the year, so in September, unfortunately I was involved in an accident with no fault of mine. Long story short, I had quite bad whiplash after the accident. I still have pains, but initially it was so painful, and the timing of it was also wrong because the exam is in October and this happened in September, so it made it really, really difficult for me to study for the exam, and it was just really difficult. So like myself, I'm sure sometimes, or even now, maybe you have something going on in your life that's preventing you from sort of putting your everything towards the exam. But I want to share this bit that even when you're in pain or you have something pulling you back, you can still sort of muster on and take the exam and pass it. So that's the only reason I wanted to mention this story. So there was one thing that I didn't quite know initially when I booked the exam. So you can book the exam on the RCGP website. It's around about, I can't remember the exact figure, but it's around £500, and you can go on the website, book the exam, and it says AKT booked. But what I didn't know is that right then and there they send you another email to say, oh, you can book your centre, and I didn't see that email until 2 days after booking my exam, which resulted in me getting a centre far, far away from where I wanted it to be. So yeah, don't make that mistake. Once you book the exam, get your centre booked right away, so it's just easier to go to the centre if there's somewhere that you particularly want it to be. So that is, I've just got some notes here, so I'm just going through them. So yeah, once the exam is booked, it's about, so I think earlier on, so I sort of learned this in med school, that your success in the exam is based on how well you prepare for the exam and how well you prepare for your preparation. So you need to have a ballpark idea about how you're going to prepare for this exam. For the AKT exam, you have to attempt 200 questions in 190 minutes. So that leaves you less than a minute to go through one question, which is fast. So that's one thing to bear in mind. The other thing to bear in mind is there are three main sort of categories of the exam. One of them is clinical knowledge, which constitutes the biggest chunk of the exam, which is 80%. The second bit is evidence-based medicine, which includes statistics, which is 10%. And the third and the last one is organization and management, which again is 10%. So it's 80, 10, 10, meaning clinical knowledge is the bulk. And if you get that right, I think you're more than likely to pass the exam. And that's how I prepared for my exam. I gave more emphasis on clinical medicine, clinical knowledge, and initially that's where I focused all my attention on, and that's how I think that's the key to my success here, to be honest with you. And yeah, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is the resources that I use. So there's no sort of financial interest I have in any of these resources. No one's paid me any money to appreciate their resource and say, oh, this is really good, but this is just something I tried a few resources, and these are the ones that I thought that were quite good. So the first one, so talking about this sort of clinical knowledge type resources. So Past Medicine is really good. It's got 4,500 questions, and I think you at least need to do them once. Some people say you need to do it twice, but I only did it once. But I would stress this though, that it's sort of basic. So if you've done Past Medicine, I think looking back, had I only done Past Medicine, I might have struggled to pass. So I did Past Medicine, and then the second thing that I used after I completed Past Medicine was RCGP SelfTest, which is a great resource. It's a resource that's developed by RCGP. It's free of cost to all its trainees. There's 2,000 questions, and the questions on the RCGP SelfTest are very similar to the questions they ask in the exam. So I think it's a really good resource that you should save some time for and go through the questions. I think initially when you move from Past Medicine to RCGP SelfTest, you just feel like, whoa, this is tough. But I think it's just got really good quality of questions. So again, I think that is a really good resource. I'll stress that again. The one resource that I wouldn't really recommend, even though it's our EPortfolio, so our 14 Fish does some AKT type questions as well, which I thought weren't quite like the questions they asked in the exam, and they're a bit vague. And to be honest with you, when I took their mock, I was quite disheartened because I did really poorly on that mock, and I thought, well, these questions are just so strange. So yeah, don't get disheartened by that. I don't think that doesn't correlate to how you do in the exam. So even though they have great videos on just learning about different things, but I don't think they've quite got it right for AKT yet. And then the holy grail, if you've got time, is to read the nice CKS clinical summaries. So there's so many topics on there, but I think you can still manage reading them. I couldn't go through all of them. Like I said previously, I didn't have enough time because pain was a major barrier to me actually doing things the way I wanted to do. So but you can, if you don't have enough time, there are summaries on every topic on nice CKS, so you can just read the first page and just familiarize yourself with what are the basic management of certain things. So that's worth doing. And the last resource which I thought was really good for statistics was the eMedica 3-hour webinar that Dr. Rahman does. I think the way he explains things is really nice. He explains it in a very clear manner, and that's the main resource that I use for statistics, because I didn't want to spend hours reading a book and going into too much depth. And like I said, it's only got 10% of marks allocation to it. So I used the eMedica resource, and I did the statistics questions on Past Medicine and RCGP SelfTest, and I got 18 on 20 or 16 on 20, something around, I think between 16 or 18, and I think that was good enough. So I really say that was a very useful thing that I used. They have one on organization and management as well, which was good, but not as good as the statistics one. So it's only around 70 quid. I think it's worth the investment. It really is a good resource. Then I think the last thing I wanted to say was that time is of essence in the exam and preparing for the exam. So like I previously said, you need to be quick in the exam. You need to be quick and correct. So 2 Q's. No, Q and C actually. So to practice, do some mocks. I didn't buy any mocks because I didn't know the exam itself is so expensive, and then I bought another resource, so I didn't buy any mocks. What I used to do is I would set a timer on my laptop or my phone, and basically bring on exam conditions and just do the normal questions. Sometimes I would set a 3-hour mock or an hour mock, but work out the questions at how many. I think I worked it out to be, you need to at least do 70 per hour. So that's how I was practicing. So then it didn't. I know some people, they couldn't complete their test, and that would be such a shame that you study so hard and then you can't complete your test. So please practice in such a way that it's an exam simulated condition, so that you're not the kind of person who leaves behind stuff in the exam. I don't think there is much else I need to mention. The only other thing I would say is that if, like myself, you're working full time and planning to take the exam maybe in January, you need to work out. So between past medicine and RCGP SelfTest, you have about 6,500 questions. And if if you're working, obviously you can't do as many as you can do on the weekend. So I think the way I worked it out was at least 150 per day, and that's the only way you kind of get through the questions. And try to stick to it. Some days you won't reach your target, some days you will, and do more on the weekend. I also used up some of my study leave for the exam, so I think that's another option. We have COVID on at the moment, there's nothing you can do. Use your annual leave. I know someone who's taking the exam in January who's using annual leave. I know some departments in the hospital, they aren't allowing trainees to take study leave, so take your annual leave, take the exam, get it done, get it out of the way, get that stress away. And yeah, these are just some things that I thought were helpful for me, and I hope they're helpful for you too. And all the very best for your test if you're taking it in January.